You're entering Corsi Nation.
This is Jerome Corsi, and today is Thursday. It's May 8th, 2025, and you can see I'm traveling again. I've been traveling a lot, getting some new projects set up, and we're just beginning to launch a new project called Veterans First. Veterans First .net is going to be up and running very soon, and it's going to be an organization that grew out of the Veterans for Trump. We're going to be building complexes around the country. We have one already built in Homestead, Florida, which will take those who are leaving the military, retiring, into a transition into civilian life. So in these facilities, we'll be able to have apartment units. There's over 200 apartment units now in a 4-building complex in Homestead, Florida. The vets get to live there for a transition period. Could be up to a year, could be longer, could be shorter. But depending upon how they're coming out of the military, in other words, we're going to be dealing with homeless military, we're going to be dealing with those who have PTSD, other military who may have drug or other issues. They may need a whole person healing. This center will have both spiritual counseling, wellness center, health center. It's going to have families in it, reunite with families that may not have been separated for years, and the ability to re-identify useful skills that can be applied in the civilian economy with jobs. The goal is to get our valued heroes back into society functioning again. We can't have as many former military on the streets homeless. We're having 50 suicides among retired vets every day. These numbers are staggering. So Veterans First is going to be launching very soon. We're having a Veterans First Foundation, and we're going to be wanting you to really support us as we go forward to try to build 150 of these different facilities, these complexes around the country in the next few years. I'm very excited about this project, and we'll be having various of the key officers of Veterans First coming forward in the program. We'll be devoting much of the program increasingly to the veterans and to their needs. All right, I want to get into the news today. This is CorsiNation.com, and you can view me in X at CorsiJerome1, and on Substack, it's at JeromeCorsiPhD.substack.com. We're putting out Substack articles almost every day. Okay, the first story I want to deal with has to do with Ed Martin. I've known Ed Martin for a long time. He was working with Phyllis Schlafly, and I worked with Phyllis Schlafly very strongly when I was doing the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America in George W. Bush's term. I wanted to build a super highway through the center of Texas. Many of you recall it. And what I believe is the result of this Thom Tillis, the senator who voted against Ed Martin. Ed Martin is now the U.S. attorney in Washington. He needed to be confirmed. But Thom Tillis, a U.S. senator, a Republican in name only, in other words, a rhino, said he could not vote for confirming Ed Martin, so he blocked it. It was 11-10, 11 GOPs for confirmation. But if Thom Tillis joins the opposition, it's 11-11, and he won't get confirmed. A tie does not confirm someone out of committee. Okay, now the reason the Democrats hate Ed Martin is because he's doing his job. And Ed Martin supported and worked with the J6ers. And of course, Thom Tillis is calling the J6ers insurrectionists. And he's saying that, of course, J6ers were the ones who committed crimes. And, the amount of lying that has gone on in this country is astounding to me. The mainstream media cannot by nature tell the truth any longer. Mainstream media has to lie. And so therefore these narratives get established. And if you dare counter the narratives, you're still a conspiracy theorist. As far as I'm concerned, the list is expanding of the worthless media. It includes not only the New York Times and the Washington Post, but the AP, the Reuters, all the wire services, they don't tell the truth. And they won't take your press releases if you dare to tell the truth. So there's an article out here on one of my friends, Jason Goodman, who's investigated Thom Tillis, and he's got some very, very damaging information about how Tillis may have in fact committed crimes with real estate to enrich himself. Now, Tillis is from North Carolina, and he sits on the Senate committees on banking, finance, and the Judiciary Committee. And he's tied to all this network of real estate transactions involving his family members with an array of limited liability companies, a nonprofit corporation registered to a luxury residential address. And this whole result, as Jason Goodman reports, is a legal ecosystem that appears to be engineered for opacity, to be difficult to penetrate through, protected by bespoke legislation and corrupt government oversight. Okay, so it's verifiable property records linking Tillis family entities to concealed or unreported assets, multiple examples of zero property transfers between corporate and family-controlled interests, omitted financial disclosures and violations of the Ethics in Government Act, and potential misuse of nonprofit resources and commingling addresses with real estate operations. Okay, so Jason Goodman lists how some of these transactions go through his wife, Susan Tillis, how it goes through various corporations, a trailer park, and other properties which were bought and sold and changed and whipped around in this conglomerate empire that Tillis created to enrich himself. I'm sick and tired of all these Democrats and Republicans in Congress who think their only purpose to be there is to get wealthy. And then he dares to vote against Ed Martin. Well, I mean, I know Donald Trump is not going to be happy about this at all. And I hope Thom Tillis has just ruined his career. He's another one that needs to be investigated by the FBI. And by the way, there's an exchange with Kash Patel and being questioned in Congress. And I want to see if I can find that because it's just classic. Kash Patel, I'm still wanting to see emerge with indictments, to get the Department of Justice organized, to hire enough good prosecutors that we can go after the many things that the Democrats have been doing, getting away with. And it's time that we quit having the mainstream media take cover for the Democrats, which is what they do. Okay, so let me see if I can just find this Kash Patel quickly. There's a lot of interesting interviews that have gone on. I'm going to give this to you here, Chris, in the, you can key this up. It'll take a minute or two to get it. It's on Rumble, but it is a very, very good exchange with his Congressman Dean, who's trying to shame Kash Patel in Congress and get her 1 minute clip for her donors to see her doing her job, whipping Kash Patel, as if it made any damn difference at all in terms of where the Republic was going. They don't want justice, the Democrats. The Democrats want to lie, cheat, steal. The Democratic Party has virtually no reason to exist whatsoever. It's a communist party that's now gone completely rogue. I'll give you a minute to cue that one up, Chris. I'll cover this another story about Michele Obama. Michelle is out there now with her failing podcast, and she is saying that, I'll just read a little bit of what the story says here for a minute. This is by Kevin McCullough. It says, a Democrat who once lived in the White House is now pretending to fear the very policies they helped to pioneer. This week's installment is Michele Obama, the woman who spent 8 years riding in Air Force One, dancing with Jimmy Fallon, and planting kale in the White House garden. She now claims she lies awake at night fearing that Donald Trump is going to deport people of color. Okay, so that's the new Democratic thing. Donald Trump is this evil, nasty, authoritarian monster who's going to deport people of color. Okay, so what McCullough is saying is let's cut through the coddled, media-fed hysteria and hit some hard, cold truth. If there were presidential medals for deportation, Barack Obama would have a matching set. Obama deported over 3 million people during his tenure. He said that's not a typo, it's not an exaggeration, that's the official number. And yet Michele has now developed a case of vapors with the idea of deportation because Trump's back in charge. That's not fear, that's opportunistic amnesia wrapped in a designer dress and sold to MSNBC as breaking news. That's all correct. Michele Obama is not afraid of deportation. She's afraid Donald Trump will do it more effectively with less hand-wringing and less Obama booting people out by the plane load while CNN cheered from the sidelines. Trump doesn't pretend. Okay, so you have lawyers now who are blocking deportations of criminals who are being deported to Libya. And by the way, I'm pleased to see Libya is entering into the news. Libya's offered to take Gazans, by the way, and we have had a proposal on that the Libyans have come to us and said basically that they are willing to work with the Trump administration to make sure that Gaza does not get repopulated with Hamas. That's a pretty startling willingness of a country that's Muslim to provide a home for the Gazans to come and live voluntarily, making it attractive for them to relocate rather than to being poster boys for the left's current, sob story meme about how poor and how bad off the Palestinians are, despite the fact that they're kept there in poverty so that they can so Hamas can get more money and the Palestinians get more money from the EU. I think they just got $2 billion more from the EU and more money from the United Nations. We didn't fund the United Nations, it would go away. That would be the best solution. By the way, you're seeing on the screen front page news with David Horowitz, and we do mourn the passing of David Horowitz. He was a great warrior for the truth. He wrote many books, which I read. He was one of the first to be on the issue that radical Islam had turned Marxist with Ayatollah Khomeini. He did brilliant work, and he will be missed. And I think it's appropriate we take a minute here and remember David Horowitz, and all the work he did pioneering, fighting for God and fighting for the truth. All right, let's Chris, we got that clip queued up. Let's play the Kash Patel clip because I think it just shows again how the Democrats are going for sound bites, how they've lost their minds, and they're just insane. Like their hate is dripping from them. Let's play this.
As you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Hopefully tomorrow, baby.
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book.
So
there are people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people,
That's good. You
and they
gave
were
them due
rightly
process.
called out.
I'm
And you
changing
should
topics.
give that book to every one of your constituents
I'm
so they can
changing
read
topics.
about it.
So again, this kind of grandstanding is what goes on all the time. Now, I think we've got a clip. Biden gave an interview, I believe, to the BBC, and let's hear him bumble through see how great Biden is doing these days with his cognitive inability to function. Let's play this one, Chris.
We had a good candidate. She was fully funded. And what happened was, I had become what we had set out to do, more than what we could do, and become so successful in our agenda. It was hard to say, "No, I'm going to stop now." I meant what I said when I started, that I think I'm prepared to hand this to the next generation.
Why would anybody listen to this bumbling fool?
But things move so quickly.
It's criminal. How many
It
billions
made
did
it
you
difficult
steal,
to
Biden?
walk away.
Let's make that a question. How many billions did your son steal?
It was
How many women did your son
it was a hard
brutalize,
decision.
rape?
But
How about the family that's
but
involved
that's
in incest with
no, I think it
on
was
and
the
on
right
and on.
decision. I think
Let's
that
give him an ice cream cone and a little girl. Maybe you can
the
go after another 15-year-old.
well,
Why are we giving
it
this
was just
guy?
a difficult
This
decision.
guy should be in a home somewhere.
But you shouldn't have taken it.
That's enough of him. That's enough of him. There we go. Ice cream. So come on for a minute, Chris. We'll have a commentary about this for a second, because what I'm seeing is we're seeing the Democrats are just desperate these days, and so if they're wheeling out Biden They have nothing left. They've got no gas in the tank.
Well, what do they have? We've discussed this before. They don't have a leader. They're lost. They're a bunch of weirdos and no names and political hacks trying to vie for position to run the party, and they're wheeling out nostalgia at this point. They were embarrassed by their own pick for president, and that was kind of forced in. Keep in mind, what would the Democrats look like in
Kamala
the era
Harris.
of woke if they passed over a black female candidate?
Yeah, Kamala Harris.
Right, it was a joke. And
Yeah,
this
that's great.
this guy was the best they had to offer in 2020, and it didn't get better.
Yeah, well, this, Biden should never have been president. He should never have been vice president. And that he stole all the billions of dollars he did from China and from Burisma. There's a guy who who advocated for a bill to be passed in foreign aid to go to Ukraine and headed for Burisma in order to compete with Gazprom. Burisma was a natural gas company in Ukraine. So the money gets there to private bank, and Kolomoisky, one of the oligarchs in Ukraine, steals the money by money laundering it through Cyprus. Okay, and it ends up in the coffers of the oligarchs, and Biden gets, he passes $17 million, whatever that bill was, to the oligarchs in Ukraine for a lousy $50,000 a month salary for his son at Burisma. This guy, here he is with ice cream. What is this? This picture meaning children, come here so I can coddle you, so I can feel you, so I can molest you. Look, I've got ice cream. Come to daddy. This guy is a criminal. And the Democrats are disgusting. And if all they've got is transgenders, and by the way, the Supreme Court said Donald Trump is commander-in-chief. If he wants to get rid of admirals and dresses, that's his decision. And I'm glad to see the commander-in-chief role being supported by the Supreme Court. Here we got another two criminals. Got an actor. So Zelensky now, his wife went on a jewelry spree. She spent about millions of dollars worth of jewelry, and they have a big mansion. I think they've even got a mansion in the United States now. And here's Obama, another criminal, and Zelensky, two guys who have mastered the art of stealing taxpayer money from the United States government. And there's his son, Hunter, who's, of course, a great painter. And his paintings now are basically worthless. Where's Hunter? Are there any more family members that he can have sex with? I mean, these people are disgusting. And the mainstream media doesn't reveal them, because mainstream media hates America. These people hate America, and they're criminals. And the American people, and they don't understand that they lost the election. That's the amazing part to me. They want to keep the J6ers in prison for 4 years without a trial. Because these people are absolutely appalling. And I sure hope Kash Patel and Pam Bondi go after them, because we're going to have some. God's Five Stones is going to add a new dimension next week. We're going to go beyond the election integrity to begin investigating some additional scandals. And we're going to expand the reach of God's Five Stones. So put it up there, God's Five Stones, which is David against Goliath. It's the deep state war against Donald Trump continues, and it does continue. Okay, so we're going to be having additional items on this website, and I think you're going to see beyond the analysis we're doing of the algorithms and the voter registration files. And by the way, the algorithms and the voter registration file are now the cornerstone of the investigation that's gone on with Peter Tickton, who's President Trump's attorney, and I'm working with him directly. We're demonstrating in various states, including Wisconsin, that there's absolute evidence that the state board of election databases are criminal. They've got tons of illegal immigrants. They've got people who are dead. They've got algorithmic schemes in it that permit the creation of false voters that yet get state IDs and do vote double in elections. We can now prove that. Okay, so what we're seeing here is we're seeing the crimes and lies of this satanic left being exposed. And they're going to squeal and object and cry, and the American people don't realize, the Democratic Party doesn't realize the American people don't give a damn. They can fly their rainbow flag up their gazoo, and I couldn't care less. Chris?
Again, the socialist affirmation flag. No longer was that a gay flag. The rainbow flag was the gay flag. The thing with the pink and blue and all the other stripes and the triangle and whatever else they add each week. That's more of a socialist affirmation flag. That's why they fly. That's why Biden flew them at the White House. It's all about telling the socialists we got your back. Because as you know, the socialist movement went to the BLM movement, Black rights movement, other minorities, and of course the trans movement, people like that, the gay movement, and said, "We'll back you up if you back us up." That's why they adopted these socialist policies, and that's why you see a lot of people, kind of who are in those groups, shy away from them.
Well, you've got breaking news right now in the New York Times, the New York Slimes, that says that Bill Gates is winding down his $200 billion foundation. Now, the only reason Bill Gates is winding down his foundation is he knows it's criminal activity and money laundering scheme to enrich himself and to produce, just to produce. Well, you know where I'm going with that.
Yeah, I
so
know.
I don't need.
Yeah, every time I hear New York Times, you know what I think of.
What's that?
I think of a lot of things, but mainly what it all boils down to is Walter Duranty. That's basically it. And they still take pride in Duranty's Pulitzer. They won't admonish it. And the journalist style, the PR for the far left and the communist socialists, that's still there. That's a centerpiece of that paper.
Durant was a so-called journalist in the 1930s when Stalin was at his prime. And what he did was he went to Russia and he wrote glorious stories about the Russian Revolution and communism. All the while he was involved in Satanism with Aleister Crowley. He was deeply involved in drugs, and he was deeply involved in lots of money and living a lavish lifestyle, sex, prostitutes, and everything else. And Duranty is known by those of us who have researched it as being what the mainstream media has become today, which is nothing but a mouthpiece for Satan. And they have no regard for the truth. So one of the major crimes that Duranty covered up was when Stalin decided that he was going to starve the Ukrainians because they wouldn't bow to him and surrender their peasant lifestyle to come into his collectivist farms. So he cut off their food, sent in the Russian army, and took food away from people. They had no food. They ultimately died of starvation, which is one of the most ugly forms of death you can imagine. And Stalin killed millions that way. And Duranty covered it up. So Duranty is the emblem of what we have today. I wrote about that in my book on the truth about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. I wrote at length about Duranty. And of course, that's one of the books I've written that did not get read the way it should have, didn't get the attention it should have, because of course, you can't get the media. But that book really goes deeply into how neo-Marxism and cultural Maoism have morphed into the anarchy we see in Antifa and how it's entirely destructive. It's only aimed to destroy. And all the Democrats can do is destroy. They embrace death. They want to kill babies. They want it with abortion. They want to, every single thing, every policy the Democrats advocate is designed to kill people. And depopulation remains the official U.S. government policy since Henry Kissinger put it in place in the 1970s with National Security Memorandum. Now, I want to cover a couple of other stories. We're also finding that James O'Keefe has released information about, I guess, Prince Andrew now. And Chris, we can cover this. This is also being covered on Liberty Daily. It's covered pretty generally around that, his bombshell was that Prince Andrew was having sex with 15-year-olds. And again, Pam Bondi says we're going to get the tapes, all the material out of Jeffrey Epstein, but it needs to be investigated. Well, she made a mistake of promising she was going to release it right away and then didn't do so. Okay, so essentially we're going to eventually get it, I believe, But then again, I'm still waiting for what Bobby Kennedy's asking for President Trump to open up a new investigation that there were at least 2 gunmen. I think there were at least 3 gunmen that killed Jack Kennedy. And on my book on that, The Final Analysis, The Assassination of JFK, The Final Analysis, shows that the X-rays have indisputable evidence that Kennedy was shot twice from the front, okay, and once from the back at a low angle, which really is evidence for 3 shooters. You should read the book and see how much you've been lied to about the Kennedy assassination now for over 60 years. Okay, let's cover a few other stories. We're finding, again, now more war. So Trump is actually now talking to Netanyahu about the United States taking over the administration of the Gaza Strip. Now, Trump suggested that this was going to happen. It's taken a little while to unfold. But as Hamas refuses to release these hostages, Netanyahu's put a deadline of May 15th, which is about 7 days from now, 1 week, in which Israel will go into Gaza and will level every building. There'll be no 2-story buildings left in Gaza, and it will be uninhabitable. And we've seen this coming. Again, it's why we're proposing that Libya can take Gazans, and this is the beginning of making sure that the Gazans don't remain in the Gazan Strip. They call them Palestinians. There never really was a country, Palestine. Okay, the Palestine referred to the Jews, the Arabs, everybody living in this area was today Israel. Palestine, the territory of Palestine, was not a country, was partitioned by the United Nations in 1948 to create the state of Israel. That night, Nasser Arafat, in 1948, attacked with his military Israel to destroy the Jewish state, which was created that day. And Ben Gurion, the head of the Jewish state, was awakened at night saying, "We're at war." And Israel's been basically at war ever since then. Countries of the world have got to stop hating Jews and decide that we're not going to get rid of the Jewish state of Israel without a nuclear war. It's the same with Zelensky. We're not going to get rid of the 2 Russian provinces that now Russia occupies when neo-Nazis under Poroshenko and Zelensky were going into these 2 provinces. They were killing Russian-speaking people. They were killing Russian Orthodox priests. They were burning Russian Orthodox churches. They're Nazis. This is not reported again. You are not getting anything near the truth in the news. All you're doing is reading the mainstream media or listening to the mainstream media broadcasts. So we are in talks about taking control of Gaza. And this, I think, is one of, again, the most positive developments President Trump has put into place. Now, there are various issues of President Trump's appointments and others that people can object to. And I've objected to Kash Patel and Pam Bondi not moving faster with indictments. But I think the truth is, in 100 days, President Trump has done remarkable things. And I like his style, which seems to be break it, fire everybody, start deporting people, let the lawfare come, and then just destroy and defeat the lawfare. So he may have to take a couple steps back. But in general, the country elected Donald Trump to do what he's doing. And these crying Democrats are only feeling sorry for themselves. Nobody else, quite frankly, gives a damn. Certainly I don't. They look foolish and ridiculous to me. Okay, so we're going to see now Moscow celebrating this Victory Day, and Zelensky's launching drone attacks. The solution to Zelensky, NATO, and the United Nations is all the same. Quit funding them and they go away. These become evil institutions. Zelensky is nothing but a criminal comic, not that smart. Putting out this outfit or that outfit and playing a role. Well, if he doesn't deliver for Kolomoisky and Pinochet and the other oligarchs in Ukraine, his days are limited. And buying himself mansions, letting his wife go buy millions of dollars worth of jewelry is not a particularly good idea. Even Bill Gates evidently is wising up about his foundation being a target. And that doesn't happen by accident either. I'm sure there are things going on behind the scenes and targeting the Gateses, targeting the money. The Democrats have their money taken away. They're going to scream like, stuck pigs. They're going to squeal. Without their money being stolen, the Democrats are nothing. Without their celebrity status and, the Jimmy Fallon show, Michele Obama is nothing. Kamala Harris, these people don't deserve to be on the national stage. Since Bill Clinton, we've only had criminals of the Democrats as presidents. And the Democrats can't win an election without stealing it. That day's coming to an end pretty quickly. Ken Paxton in Texas just indicted some postal officials for rigging the 2024 election. And by the way, we should start subpoenaing the postal records because the post office keeps a record of every single piece of mail. I want to know what they did with these mail-in ballots, where they were delivered, when they were delivered, what batches were delivered, how they produced them at the 11th hour in 2020. And by the way, this idea that J6ers were an insurrection and they were killing law enforcement officers in the Capitol, the Democrats lie. If Obama is moving his lips, he's lying. I mean, that's just a rule you can have. Whatever these people are saying, you can't trust it. All right, now I want to cover the economy as well, because I do continue to see a crash coming. And I think it's going to start in Europe. Europe is going to, when it comes down to being the winner, you're going to see England going to have to go back to paying subsidies for people to turn on the heat. You're going to see, again, Spain and Portugal, which have gone to zero, net zero. They're going to go also to net free zero. They're going to be freezing in the winter, and they're not going to have the money to turn on the heat. So all of the Democratic ideas, every single one of them is destructive, and it's aimed to be destructive. But Trump is going to be, I think, revealing a major trade deal today between the United States and the United Kingdom. Okay, and that's going to be the beginning of country after country conceding to Trump, because these free trade has been nothing but ship our manufacturing to China, have slave labor in China, enrich China, where we should take that manufacturing back and we should have tariff against tariff. Other countries want tariffs on our goods. We put tariffs on their goods. Okay, so we are in the middle here of seeing Donald Trump rearrange the world economy in favor of the United States again. And I expect there to be major economic disruptions. Gold today is trading at $3,413 an ounce. Okay, it's going to go to $4,000 an ounce. Those of you who don't listen to me, I was saying gold when it was $1,800 an ounce. Pretty soon you could have doubled your money, especially if you're taking your IRAs and your 401ks and talk to Swiss America, and Chris will show you Swiss America. I want to give you the number. I want you to call them. I want you to talk about getting a self-directed IRA so you get some of your retirement funds into gold and silver in a depository in Delaware where they'll be safe and guaranteed by Lloyd of London's insurance contract that the gold is really there. If you act now, you can also take advantage of this 250 coin Walking Liberty $50 offer. At silver, they're about 99% silver, close to it. And you can get 250 of them at virtually what they're worth today in silver. It's a lost leader, but I think this is better than saying, oh, you're going to get $10,000 of free gold and all the other offers you hear from companies that want to sell you gold stock and the like. This, you'll actually get from Swiss America, the real precious metals to hold and to own. You should get a copy, a free copy of my book, How the Coming Global Crash Will Create an Historic Gold Rush. And Chris is going to put up the 800 number now so you know what to call. We'll have that just in a second here. It's 1-800-519-6268. Swiss America does consultative selling. It's not a hard sell. It's consultative selling. 1-800-519-6268. Swiss America will take a look at your needs and design a program for you. Despite not having wealthy millions of dollars, you can still benefit from holding gold and silver. Why just have your holdings in worthless dollars? We will see a dollar crash, I think, sometime later this year, certainly in the Trump presidency. We're going to have to do something to revamp the dollar, because we cannot have this level of debt and deficits. I don't know why we're borrowing our money from the Federal Reserve. If it's all fiat currency, why don't we just print it? Why are we paying private bankers who own the Federal Reserve, called Federal Reserve, but it's really a private bank? Why are we paying these people to create our money? You can't answer me that from within the logic of modern monetary theory. 1-800-519-6268. All right, now I'm expecting I'm going to get a call here to be on a media interview, so I'm going to do one or two more stories quickly that will, I think, just wrap this up today. Von der Leyen, who's heading the EU, is calling upon the EU to rush Ukrainian entry in order to have a blow to Putin. Putin's got more patience than I can imagine. I mean, he backed off from nuclear war. Even Woodward's book on war said that we were within an inch of nuclear war, and we were until Putin decided he'd wait until Trump got into office when we could begin having some sanity in international politics and international economics. And we're beginning to have some sanity. Trump is remarkable. Despite all the things said, all the attacks, all the fake prosecution, he continues to thrive. And I think this time I can see that he understands that God saved his life. He turned his head just at the right split second to survive a shot that would otherwise have killed him. And what we're finding is that Trump, I think, basically doesn't give a damn anymore. He's heard enough from the Democrats. He's calling out reporters left and right. He's making them look foolish for their gotcha questions, and they hate it. They hate Trump because Trump is probably going to become one of the most popular and most effective presidents we've ever had. And thank God we've got Donald Trump. If we had the Democrats in right now, we would not have a country. Okay, so I'm finally seeing people writing what I've been saying. The first cryptocurrency is the dollar. Okay, because once nothing backs the dollar, now we've got cryptocurrency. The full faith and credit of the United States is about again to be devalued. Even our bonds have to be sold for higher interest rates because the fact is we're just paying off our bonds with new bonds that we're just printing. It's a Ponzi scheme. We've become a Ponzi scheme. And a Ponzi scheme cannot long survive. They never do. And this one won't either. Okay, so and what I'm seeing here is we're going to see more economic turmoil. We have the Dow up and down. So let me just see where the Dow closed yesterday. It was up 284 points. Okay, but again, if Trump is going to announce a trade deal with the UK, the markets are going to love that. So they'll be buoyant for a while. But then they'll get some other news and they'll go down, and the 284 points the market gained, it'll give back. So right now, people are just playing this bouncing of the stock market to make money by short-term buying and selling. Okay, it's not a strong bull market that's driven by demand. The market, the economy is still struggling under the Biden inflation, and it has not fully recovered. Okay, so the GOP Congress is going to have to realize that they're dealing with a dollar that is increasingly worthless, and that crisis is not going to go away. Once we see commercial real estate starting to collapse because people aren't going back to the office buildings and they're not going to be able to be refinanced at what they are supposedly worth, we're going to see major economic dislocation, economic gyrations, and there's nothing much we can do about it but suffer through it. Okay, so in the end, God always wins, and God is going to win here too. I know some days it looks dismal with the Democrats out there screaming like banshees out of hell with all their demon ideas, as if anybody cared. Do we really want to support Venezuelan MS-13 thugs mother rapers, father rapers, baby rapers. I mean, is that what we really want this country to support? Democrats? We want to support all the money laundering you've done, Democrats, all the elections you've stolen, all the lies you've told. American people are sick of it. And American people, I think, are sick of the Democratic Party. Once we get honest elections, and Donald Trump is going to follow through and ultimately declare a national security emergency because foreign nations are penetrating our election computers. We can prove the computers are penetrated with the algorithms we're finding in these state board of election databases. So we need to have fair elections, and we're heading there. Donald Trump, I think, will invoke again increasingly the Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief to get these things righted. And I was glad to see some of the Antifa at the University of Washington finally arrested for terrorizing the university. Finally, I think we're beginning to get the first semblances of sanity back into America with the MAGA movement. This Dr. Jerome Corsi, in the end, God always wins. God's going to win here too. God did not create this place to lose. Satan, however, will be sent back to hell where he belongs. Thank you for joining us at CorsiNation.com. We're doing podcasts every weekday. Please pass the word that we're back with CorsiNation.com. Thank you for joining us. God bless.